for inviting me here to share this story with you. The slide that you see here, it's up here, it's donaldfordimages.com. And I just put it up because I wanted to share with you the Barry bun. And you can see that it looks quite sculpted. It's been straightened out in parts from the days when I used to play the Burnside golf course, the championship course. And the reason for that is flooding. It used to flood. And that's been a problem around the Carnoustie Links and indeed Barry Links for many years. Sorry, yeah. Now this slide depicts the cover of a book published in 1988 by the author David Ainsley, who wrote under the name Stuart Hackney. His work, Carnoustie Links, Courses and Players, was the catalyst for my further research, which started around 2011. Part of that research was to try and discover the location of a lost golf course, a forerunner of the famous Carnoustie courses, which Hackney claims was lost in the mists of time. We start with the author of Golf Scotland's Game, Dr. David Hamilton, whose article in Through the Green, the September 2012 issue of the British Golf Collectors Society Quarterly magazine, he points to an anomaly. All the original golf clubs or societies, those 10 most ancient, were formed by the aristocracy or landed gentry. Yet Carnoustie stands alone, claiming to be the first artisan club founded in 1842. Before the minor aristocracy and landed gentry of the area founded their clubs on Carnoustie Links. Now I discovered very quickly this story is complex, its recorded history opaque. It is unlike researching the life of a historical golfing figure, and there is little early evidence of recorded golfing activity of a society or club on a named golf course. Ladies and gentlemen, as I peeled this historic onion, I would discover it's not all about golf. Now there were clues involving the Hunter family of Blackness, the landowners in the Parish of Barry, the minor aristocracy, but related through marriage to James VII, Earl of Lauderdale. The Hunters will play their game of golf with fellow members of some of the most ancient golf clubs in Scotland and their societies. The other main character is Lord Dalhousie, William Mall, residing in his main residence, Brecon Castle, in the county of Angus. William Mall might be a bit more than a playground bully, but he will trample over those who would oppose him. And fake news, ladies and gentlemen, is certainly not new. To find this lost golf course, I needed to discover as much about the Hunters as I could, as they owned the Balskelly estate, which is adjacent to the Carnoustie estate in the county of Angus. Now, the Carnoustie estate was owned by a Major Phillips at that time. The Hunters also owned estates of Blackness in Dundee and Kintrocket near Brecon Castle, about a mile from Brecon Castle. All of these estates are in the county of Angus. As the research progressed, it became clear I had to touch very briefly on the swirl of local politics, the economic impact of the Second Industrial Revolution, and the social changes of the time, to better understand the reasons why I believe this golf course was indeed lost. An important part, do come in, sir, can you find a seat?
I apologise.
You haven't missed much. An important part of the research was to try and confirm part of Hackney's written work. For example, that there was this forerunner of the Carnoustie courses that he hints to, and that the Hunter was a captain of Musselburgh Golf Club in 1810. Now the latter might be easy to figure, going down to Musselburgh and looking through the records, but it unearthed some interesting points. The problem with all of Hackney's work is he didn't credit any of these sources. Many researchers, frustrated as his work may still stand up as one of the best written accounts of golf generally in the town of Carnoustie. Now, we need to go back in my time machine. I'll let you give it a couple of minutes to read that slide. Okay. Golf was first recorded as being played on the links land of Barry in 1527 in the Register de Panmure, a recorded history of the Mall family. Now that history is unique. It's not embellished. most of the histories of the landed gentry were embellished to make them look better than they actually were. This one was not. It was plain, simple fact. Now the culprit was one Foxmore, said to play golf and play football and gamble on outcomes, but he didn't like to lose money, and he also enjoyed a drink. Both Carnoustie and Monifieth claim this man as the forerunner of golf on their links. Now Monifieth probably has the greater claim, as it's known that two men were sanctioned in the local church for playing on the Sabbath in the 1600s, while there was no mention of such activity in Carnoustie. The reason is simple. Carnoustie Links, in terms of topography, did not exist, and the village was only founded in 1797. Science-based opinion informs that wind and tidal flow was already changing the landscape of Carnoustie Bay. The culprit was, in part, this landmass, plus the river Tay. Now this slide is taken from the Stevenson map of the River Tay. It depicts a triangle of links land in the parish of Barry, sitting between Monifieth, that's on the left-hand side, and Carnoustie on the right-hand side of the map. The map was started in the late 1700s and completed around 1832. It's 17 feet long and about 5 feet wide. This section about 4 feet wide. Now this is the playground for the landed gentry of the county of Angus. If you look carefully, you'll see stables, and I know it's very difficult to see this on this slide, but over here, these are stables on the Monifieth side, just on the border of the Monifieth parish. This is marked as a racecourse, down here towards the lighthouses here. The links themselves, they're about 2,500 acres in size, so it's quite a substantial amount of land. As I say, they were a known sporting area for the lords of the manor. This next quote is from the historian Warden. And he explains the relationship between those layers and thus the glue that holds this story together. And it's really important. I did a bit of extra research and I found, looking at the agricultural records of the area, that there were only really 60 landowners with an estate more than 1,000 acres. So you could fit them all into this room. They were quite a close-knit bunch. And you will see that the slide actually mentions the land in between Carnoustie and Monifieth. Now, having established the area of land use for sport and social connections for the landed gentry, returned to the hunters who originated in the parish of Monifieth in the 1500s, where they owned an estate called Burnside, west of the parish. Now, actually, I found that to be in Broughty Ferry, if you know the area at all. It's rather much of a surprise, but in those days, the parish of Monifieth extended into what is now Broughty Ferry. They would sell part of this estate and move to another just east of the town of Forfar. The county seat of government, known as the Dodd Estate, which they renamed Burnside for some reason. A good move, as it established a power base for them in local government, which they would use successfully over the next 400 years. Now, a branch of this hunter family, a class known as merchant burgesses, would move from Forfar to Dundee and acquire the estate of Balskelly in the parish of Barry in the late 1600s from a Dr. Lamb, resident of Edinburgh. Now, please, the Balskelly estate is divided into two significant parts, and this slide shows the northern part of the estate. Now, I won't bother explaining where that fits, but this is an 1810 survey map conducted by a surveyor in the Muirglen. And if you can imagine moving that across into the Ordnance Survey map, you might be able to see the curvature going down either side. A straight line on one, straight down here, curve there, it lands right onto the links of Carnoustie. Does everybody see that? Can you see that here? Now the actual top of that estate is sitting on the A92, if you're familiar with that road. It's the Dundee and Arbroath Road. Now the next slide is the lower half of the estate, and the one that's important. This is its eastern borders extending from the village of Barry's Old Church south, keeping today's Barry railway station a few yards from its eastern border, continuing to go directly south skirting past the lighthouses, then moving along the west of the foreshore before turning, crossing part of Blackness Medal Panmure Golf Club, and ending just west of Barry Village. So again, if you can turn this around in your imagination, this clump of trees here, marry it up with that clump of trees there, move this around, you get an idea of roughly the position of that estate. It's over 600 acres. Taken together, these two parts of the estate measure some 1,346 acres, and east to west covering parts of the land for almost 2 miles. This information is taken directly from 2 survey maps that you've seen, and I used Ordnance Survey and satellite ground mapping to identify the actual areas of the estate. Now these surveys were commissioned by Alexander Gibson Hunter in 1810 on the death of his father in 1809. And this slide depicts the 1788 painting by Sir Henry Raeburn of David Hunter of Blackness. The original purchaser of the Balskelly estate was David's grandfather. The title Blackness is considered a barony and is in the estate of Dundee. It's acquired by David's father, Alexander, from the Weatherburn family, that's the distinguished Dundee family, in 1743. And if you just move a little bit side to side, the eyes in the portrait follow you. It's really quite eerie. Now, I just thought I'd put this slide in for you. It's the Blackness house where they all stayed over a period of time. This was in a newspaper locally, and it was talking about the history of the house. And I got the impression that what they were writing about was excellent, black. They were doing it for a purpose. They didn't want it demolished. Unfortunately, it was demolished. So that's in the 1920s. That article. Now, what I found out was that David Hunter, that portrait we looked at, his golf was played as a member of the Honourable Company of Edinburgh Golfers. His many matches were accounted for in the recorders books of that club, and he was on occasion joined by his son Alexander. Often referred to as the young Laird of Balskelly, seemingly he was never away from the place in his youth. So if you want to throw the next slide, I'll let you digest that for a minute or two. Just while you're looking at that, I had to go through 27 years of these matches just to make sure I captured anything that the hunters were involved in. But it's quite a remarkable journey in its own right, because it threw up quite a few issues about how that club developed. Okay, everybody happy? Move on to the next one. Now, these are some of the people that were playing with David Hunter. And as you can see, some of the names are familiar. Patullo, Fettes, Dr. Duncan, Ballantyne. Ballantyne's in the book publishing business. Now, anybody know? There's a name down there that really intrigued me. The bottom one, Sormonth. I thought that was a misspelling. It should be Stormonth. David's nodding his head, so it must be right. So the recorder wasn't getting it quite right. Now, Alexander Hunter was found on page 67 on the 3rd of August in 1793, the forthcoming match between Mr. Ballantyne, Mr. Alexander Hunter, versus Mr. Fettes and Dr. Duncan, first Saturday of September next for dinner. Then Mr. Hunter features on the same page on the 3rd of August with Mr. Ballantyne, which seemed to include Mr. Fettes and Dr. Duncan for dinner again. So young Alexander is playing golf with members of the Honourable Company. Now, what's interesting about that is that these matches with Ballantyne have the potential to support Archibald Constable's prior knowledge of his future partner, Alexander Hunter. Ballantyne's in the book publishing business, as was Archibald Constable. Alexander was moving in the same social circles as Archibald did business. Now, at that point in time, my research indicates that the business was struggling, and he was looking for someone to join the business. And Alexander was ready to do that. Now, his matches were played on Leith Links and not Musselburgh, if you're interested. Alexander Hunter moved to Loretto House in Musselburgh after training to become a writer to the Signet with a local Edinburgh law firm. However, I have to confirm Hackney's work. Alexander still finds time to play golf, and in 1810 he wins the Cup at Musselburgh as a guest player. He becomes captain of the golf club, and it's recorded in the minutes of the club that he donates feathery balls to the Musselburgh Boys Academy and silk scarves for the winners of the annual Fishwives Golf Tournament. There you are, ladies. Golf's being played by women in 1810. I don't know what kind of golf they were playing, but they were playing something. Could be putting, could be driving, could be anything really. Now, another journey in my time machine. Right. Just over 90 years later, this man on the left side of the picture here, Alexander's grandson, David Hunter of Blackness. As a member of Royal Musselburgh Golf Club in 1901, David writes to Mr. Tate, the club's captain, requesting that the club accept as a gift 3 clubs belonging to his grandfather, Alexander Gibson Hunter. This gift, which at the time was unanimously accepted by the club's council, was with further offers of clubs and balls from fellow council members, was the start of the Royal Musselburgh Golf Club archive. At the same time, Dixon, a well-known Edinburgh and Musselburgh clubmaker, also wrote a similar letter donating a number of ancient clubs to the Royal Musselburgh Golf Club, which together with a Hunter donation helped to establish that archive. Now, David would eventually become captain of Royal Musselburgh Golf Club during the club's amalgamation with the Musselburgh Club in 1908. Now, through the offices of Ian Jeffrey, the Honourable Secretary of the Royal Musselburgh Golf Club, and in his company, I was able to view and photograph the minute books covering the period 1810 and the extensive archive of ancient play clubs, including the 3 Hunter clubs, all of which were locked away in the bank vault in Midlothian and not on public display. More is the pity. Now, these are the 3 clubs, and they're identified for me by John Still from photographs I took from information from the minute book of the club. John is a member of the Brunsfield Golf Society and their archivist, as well as a member of the British Golf Collectors Society, and a Hickory addict. He plays a lot of Hickory golf and he does collect clubs. Now, Alexander's clubs have been identified as of the James VII era. That's 1685 to 1689. Now, it wasn't an easy task, and it took quite a bit of research to do this. And you can find the full story of that on the US Golf Collectors Society website in their March editions of the Society magazine as well. Now, the clubs you're looking at, we know what 2 of them are. These are Spartu Lions. I don't know what the value is today, probably 6 figures for each club. There are only apparently 8 in the world. The driver, probably priceless, to be quite honest. I wouldn't know. And John wouldn't hazard a guess either. Next slide. Now I'm going to leave you with this one. It's a marvellous collection. You can see the tallest driver there on the left-hand side. That's the Alexander Gibson Hunter Club. The other honey-coloured clubs there, the lighter coloured clubs, are Philp clubs, the Stradivarius of drivers. There's also a ring maker, iron, involved in this collection. And it's a very heavy-headed putter with a very stiff, heavy shaft. One, I'm told, was sold at Bonhams a few years ago for £63,000. It's quite a collection, and it's a great pity it's not on display to the public. Back in my time machine, to Alexander. Now there's considerable backstory to Alexander, but sadly nothing further about golf. But I wanted to share some of his story with you, as it's important to establish his relationship with his best pal, William Mall. Now, in joining the Society of Writers for the statement, Alexander begins to map out his future. Firstly, he marries his aunt. In August 1800, the sister of his mother, one of Gibson Wright of Clifton Hall's 6 daughters. Now it's a shrewd move, as Alexander is now Alexander Gibson Hunter, connected to royalty, James VII. His next move is to buy into that firm of Archibald Constable, the book publishers in Edinburgh. He's building the business. He's not going to sit behind the desk doing the accounts, and he's not going to do the legal procedures for the company. He's out there selling the company, building the business. Part of which involved taking prospective clients to Mall's castle to be entertained with Viking hospitality. That's the words in the books. And one of the books said Scandinavian hospitality. But Viking hospitality, I can assure you. Now, if he wasn't doing it in Brecon Castle, he was also using his own estate in Kiltrocket. This is, as I said, about a mile southwest of Brecon Castle. Now, Alexander could be brutally frank in his business dealings with the partnership of Archibald Constable. For example, he told the young Walter Scott, who was writing his Waverley novels, which would be published by Constable anonymously, to stop writing third-rate rubbishy poetry. Now, that's my words. His words were a little stronger than that. It didn't go down well with the young man who considered himself to be a genius. I think it probably took a little bit of brow stroking at Blackness House with a few dinners. He then becomes chair of the forerunner of Edinburgh's Botanical Gardens. Thus he's rubbing shoulders with the cream of Scotland's aristocracy. And when I looked at the list, I can tell you it's eye-watering. It was the who's who of Scottish aristocracy. So he's right up there. Now, with the death of his father in 1809, Alexander suspends his partnership with Constable, returning to his Angus estates, commissioning the Balskelly survey that you've seen, and dealing with his other 2 estates. But Alexander's past life, his high, fast living, takes a turn for the worse. And alas, he dies young, at 41 years of age, in 1812. Now, if you think about this, he won the Cup in 1810, and he wasn't well. Now that's probably the result of sugar disease. For example, this next slide provides details of 2 dinners hosted by Alexander. And note the last letter to Constable, who's been urging him to return to the partnership. Anyone guess what's for dinner? First bullet point. No Googling. No. If I take away the fins and put in flippers, and it crawls out of the sea. Any ideas?
Penguins.
Turtle, that's it, that's the one, turtles. The top half of the shell, coloured mash, coloured yellow, the bottom half, coloured green, calpie. They were gorging themselves. And you can also see how much drink they were consuming in the second one, the yellow letter. And that's mild. All right. Now it's at this point in time, I think, the seeds are sown for the loss of that golf course. Alexander's eldest son, David, and there were 8 other children in the family. In 1812, he's 9 years old. And Alexander's 3 estates, Blackness, Kiltrocket, and Balskelly, including his financial settlement with Archibald Constable, and that was £27,000. He invested £3,000 and he got £27,000 back in a very short space of time. It was clear that Archibald thought a great deal of Alexander. So it's put into trust for young David, and it's chaired by William Mall, Lord Dalhousie. Now over time, Mall replaces the trustees with his own appointments. So back in the time machine again, we're going 9 years later. David's now 18. And the backstory is he's back from France and Italy. He's a WS, a writer and signet, an idealist, full of energy and ideas. and William Mall was his tutor. Both men are Whigs politically. In 1821, still 3 years from his majority, David, on visiting Balskelly, is set upon by the tenants, claiming he's trespassing on Lord Dalhousie's land. And I can assure you he got quite a doing. Sticks, stones, and whatever he was chased on. Now somehow William Mall is dismissive of David's complaints. So David, in 1824, takes his case on ownership of Balskelly to the lower court in Forfar and wins, hands down, and is awarded £500 cost. Now that's the one thing you don't want to do to William Mall. Disagree with him, challenge him. He's crossed the red line. Mall then appeals to the higher court, claiming David doesn't have title to the land. And a protracted court case ensues, with murky doings. And it lasts until 1837. Next slide. That's the docket. When a compromise is proposed by David's lawyer, his brother James, also a WS, to Mall's solicitors through the court. Now Mall's solicitors accept the compromise, acknowledging that David has title to the land of Balskelly. However, this case would drag on over boundary disputes. Mall was determined to make it difficult for David. But he lost the purpose of his case against him. He could no longer have the Balskelly estate. Now, while all this is going on, typically, David leaves his brother, James, to get on with it. He's other interests to pursue. Now, this is not unusual because there was a big court case in Dundee going on. And during that court case, which would go to the highest law lord in Scotland, David got in his cutter and went off to France to paint. So he's the eldest son and you can afford to do it. James is getting paid well, presumably. Now, next slide, please, Anna. That's David in the middle. Admiral Maitland Dougal, he's related to marriage through with David. And Playfair you'll recognise. All great golfers in the day. David, in his life, is a prolific golfer. He's a member of the Scotsgrave Golf Club where he's captain in 1834, and that was the year that the landowner went bankrupt. So the club played for the gold medal that year in Montrose, which David won. He's also a member of the St Andrews Union Club, where eventually he sits on the council, a member of the Panmure Golf Club, the Royal Perth Golf Society, the Caledonian Union Society, and may, like his father, according to Stuart Hackney, have been captain of Musselburgh. Now, unfortunately, the critical minutes are missing, and I can't evidence that. But I wouldn't have been surprised, to be quite honest. There's a strong Musselburgh connection. Now, golf may have been one of his passions, but he was an accomplished artist involved in numerous City of Dundee governing organisations, including the Harbour Board. His residence in Blackness House in Dundee was said to have hosted many dignitaries, national politicians, artists, including Queen Victoria's resident artist, who stayed at Blackness House painting with David around the counties of Perth and Angus, travelling in a pony and trap in the company of, you'll never guess, a tiger. I don't know who owned it, but it was there. And Lord Byron would just pop in for dinner. So what have we established? Well, we've established a hunter area of land, Balskelly Estate, from 2 surveys, 1810. The clue, the important bit, the social dynamic of the landed gentry through Warden. Hunter's golfing pedigree over 4 generations. Alexander's close relationship with Mall, and it was very close. Mall's devious behaviour, and with the 1820 railway survey, potential for major economic change for all the estate owners who would benefit from the introduction of said railway. Now, nobody knows who took that survey on. It's an authoritative detail from one of the authors of Scotland's Railways, and he mentions it, but I cannot find who did the survey. So there's a question mark over that. But the railway issue is significant. In 1835, David Hunter commissions an independent Dundee and Arbroath line survey. The result is an estimated 10% return on capital investment, and that's quite significant. He's also involved in building the Perth-Dundee line, same year, 1835. Now, Mull finds out about the Dundee and Arbroath line, and he issues an edict for a survey to be carried out. In 1836, it results in a public meeting held with Wall in the chair, opposed to what David Hunter's own project describes. Now, at this point in time, the project's actually oversubscribed. There's a hoo-ha in the press about the fact that people were locked out of actually investing because there's a lot of money to be made in this. Now, the Dundee and Arbroath Railway is introduced in 1838, the first train running in October that year. And the event is set to change the economy of Carnoustie, in particular those that would participate in the sport of golf on the links of Barry and Carnoustie. Now the lost golf course, the evidence. Just another slide. Now, Geordie Lowe, born in 1856, he comes to Carnoustie from Carmiley, which is a small hamlet near Carnoustie. He's 8 years old, his parents moving for new work opportunities. Geordie is benefiting from a better schooling at Barry School. However, he's caddying, and at the age of 11 he enters an apprenticeship as a clubmaker under Mr. Frank Bell, keeper of the green at Carnoustie's golf course. Now, Geordie would go on to become a professional golfer and a course designer, ending his career in Australia. It's in Carnoustie he meets Robert Miller, the linen agent who moved to Barry Village around 1835. Now, I'm not sure if he actually took up residence in 1835. He may have rented property in 1835 because he was now conducting business in the linen trade in the area, and it was substantial, it was well recognised. Miller would be a driving force in Carnoustie's emerging golfing journey. He is knowledgeable, being from St Andrews, where he previously caddied in golf. He was also secretary to a number of golf clubs on the links, including Carnoustie's Golf Club. In fact, I managed to discover about 4 that he was secretary for. Now, Geordie's brief education in the 3 R's serves him well. He keeps a fairly detailed diary, recording conversations he has had with Robert Miller about the Barry Club, playing on Barry Links in the 1830s. But he also witnesses golf being played on Barry Links in the 1860s by David Hunter of Blackness and others who he knows by name. Now, I'm assuming here with that he knew them, he named them in his diary. It's Millen and Brand. Millen is a landowner just to the outside, going towards Boniface on the Barry Road. It's a rather substantial mansion up the hills above the Balskelly estate. Brand was a factor. So I can confirm that Geordie Lowe's witnessing David Hunter and others playing golf on Barry Links is supported in the local press, reporting the Blackness Medal was played for in 1862 on the links of Barry by the Caledonian Union Society. Now, I didn't dig any further with this. I didn't have to. This is a yearly event. It would turn up every year, had been turning up every year since 1842, when that society was first formed. But its membership was always landed gentry, formed annually from the most ancient clubs in Scotland. And I think the catalyst for that was probably the Royal Perth Golf Society. I think their membership was dwindling, and I think this was one of the reasons why this annual event was taking place. But it had run its race, really. Things were changing, and it would soon disappear. And that was probably because of the formation of the Panmure Golf Club in 1845 on Moneyfeith Links and the Dalhousie Club on Carnoustie Links. The later part of that was 1868. Now, note the words on the slide used by Stuart Hackney, a proper golf course. Hackney is a lawyer and chooses his words very carefully what he writes. Now, I think some historians, some amateur historians, use the linkage back to Hackney's book when they talk about the proper golf course being established on Barry Links. However, I have to tell you there's no direct evidence of Hackney's claim regarding the hunter's request to Robert Chambers Senior. Now, from my understanding of the area's history and my own research, circumstantial evidence perhaps, this is evidence that relies on an inference to connect to a conclusion. And I believe that Robert Chambers, if he had been consulted at all, he would have advised against developing the existing golf course on Balskelly. He was very knowledgeable about the topography of the area and the microclimate and tidal flooding of the specific area. It was really a non-starter at the time. In recognising the problems of golf on the more western parts of Balskelly, where a golf course would have suffered the serious flooding, the vagaries of a peculiar climate, the Panmure Club discovered this 50 or so years later, when they acquired their private course, partly on this land, 1897. They had serious trouble with flooding. Is the next slide actually on there? Now, I consider that Harry Chapman's article in the Scots magazine is referred to the 10-hole 1848 layout put in place by Alan Roberts, where Chambers' involvement is recognised by Harry's interviews here. Alan was known to visit Barry Links as a guest player of the Caledonian Union Society in 1842, where it's reported in the local press he played a few holes and commented about the suitability of Barry Links if it was properly laid out. In the 1830s, Chambers would also have known about the potential railway development. Those things were changing. Now, I went through all of Chambers' correspondence, all his private diaries and his public diaries. There is absolutely no evidence of any communication with the hunters. Oral evidence. Well, interviewing knowledgeable sources, basically. The past manager of the Panmure Golf Club, which occupies part of the old Balskelly estate, and 3 interviews with Eric Shield. Both men independently stated golf was played on a course south of the existing Panmure Golf Course. Now, the Blackness Medal, or Barry Medal as it was sometimes referred to, the founding date of the Carnoustie Golf Club, there was a letter published in the Courier, the Dundee newspaper, in 1937. It was written by the match secretary of the Carnoustie Club, William Yule, and he stated that in 1839 the Blackness Medal was played for and won by Mr. James Mitchell of Lower Balmackie Farm. And according to William Yule, Mitchell competed for the Carnoustie Club's first medal in 1842 and came third in the lists. James Mitchell would go on to win the Carnoustie Club's subscription medal in 1843 under the club's new patron. Now, Mitchell, I believe, would not be classed as an artisan member. And this was an attempt to imply continuity of club membership, in this case changing the founding date of the club from 1842 back to 1839. However, the Carnoustie Club Secretary Minute of 1861 held in Dundee University Archives clearly gives the date of the club's founding as 1842. Now, it was simply a brief rotation, not part of the formal club minute, but a truthful and perhaps at the time a courageous one. The reason given that the membership fractures were appearing in the club that would cause the gentry and the artisans to part company with the birth of the Taymouth Golf Club. Now, David divorced himself from this newly formed Carnoustie Club that played on Barry Links, due, I believe, to its changing membership, and more importantly, the decision to adopt Miss Kinloch as its patron. But he continued to support the Barry Club, although its days too were numbered. Now, there's more on this in the Hunter-Kinloch relationship. There was seriously bad blood between them. And at this point in time, David Hunter throws the rattle out of the pram where he puts his estate of Balskelly up for sale in 1842 and tries to walk away. He's going to invest more time in Dundee with his estate there. So the important points really are the Barry Club didn't change its name to become the Carnoustie Club in 1842. The Carnoustie Club seems to have evolved out of some of the membership of the Barry Club, choosing a new patron, Miss Kinloch, and taking the name the Carnoustie Golf Club. The Barry Club would continue to be supported by David Hunter of Blackness beyond 1842, so it's quite clear that 1842 is the founding date of the Carnoustie Carnoustie Golf Club. Now this reflects a change in the social dynamic, a more radical approach at the time by Miss Kinlaw, the new patron of the Carnoustie Club and the owner of the Carnoustie estate. She is already heavily involved in the expansion of the town and the well-being of its citizens. Cheaper fuels, better roads, railway crossings. In a word, infrastructure equals business investment. There's business coming into Carnoustie. David Hunter is simply not on the same page. The railway's impact is being felt and David's world is actually changing. He's really standing still. So the answer as to why there's no record of the Balskelly golfing ground is it's now irrelevant, as Carnoustie is changing fast and factories are due to reach the Balskelly estate, or what was the Balskelly estate. Now both Moll and Hunter had conflicting visions over the Balskelly land. Its use as a playground for the landed gentry wasn't really important at all. It's about wealth creation. David wanted income from the proposed railway, with villas built, and I quote, on the rising ground of Cotsall. Now Moll saw the industrial complex, the factories, the businesses along the route of the railway line. Although he lost the court case and the direct income from the fuse, he got his industry investment in part. Given the timing of events, I believe Moll's High Court case against David was resolved because simply they'd both run out of time. The railway was going to be built, it was public knowledge, and the judge, in his written remarks while accepting the compromise, found the reasoning behind it seriously flawed. It really was. You'd have to read the court case to see that. I did wonder at the time if he was a shareholder in the railway. I'm glad to get rid of it. The proposed railway line would cross over parts of the Balskelly estate for nearly 2 miles and right through where today's Panmure Golf Club sits on its boundary directly to its north. The railway investors began to see the fruits of their investment as factories began to arrive in what was the Balskelly ground in the 1850s. The first one was a chemical works, or a vitriol works. It was also producing sulfuric acid, and it was tied into the linen trades. With William Moll no longer interested in the estate, it was hard to sell. David kept on investing in his estate, and over time, a number of adverts appeared in Edinburgh, Dundee, Fife, etc. An improved advert turned up in 1847, and I think this next slide should, oh no, that's the one that should have been hidden. Apologies. I can cover that one right now. You can see at the first side of the presentation, you saw how sculpted the button was. Now you can see how it's squiggling around there. And it's tight. It's got weeds. If you put a ball in that, you'll never find it. Quite honestly, very difficult. Other thing I want to point out, I don't have a pointer, but up here, on this bit here, from there that way, and from there down across here, that bit is Hunterstown, named Hunterstown. And Hunterstown and the Hunter estate, Balskelly, comes down across here, and is a bit further over there. So it is part of modern day Carnoustie. Yeah, I think we've covered that one. And that's the advert. It's actually lot 3 is the interesting one. Please don't read it. It's not good. I just want to let you see that there was an advert. Lot 3 is the one that's the important one. Meanwhile, it's no surprise to find David and his cousin Charles Hunter attending the founding meeting of the Moneyfaith Club, the Gentlemen's Club, in 1845, and David becoming a member in 1847. His cousin Charles actually joined right away, and he's still in Broughty Ferry. Carnoustie's embryonic links first golf course was 5 holes, then it was extended to 7, which was partly on Balskelly land. The northern part of Balskelly would include the land occupied by parts of modern-day Burnside Golf Course, holes 1 through 5, parts of them, and part of the 17th. In other words, the ground in this particular area of the estate is fit for the purposes of golf, being links land, which extends further to the estate's, Balskelly estate's western boundary, just past the 16th tee and 3rd green of today's Panmure Golf Club. So the key to understanding the suitability of the land for golf is also part of the wording of the 1847 advert there. It describes lot 3 as the estate includes lochside and cotside. And that's part of the land that was purchased by the Panmure Golf Club in 1897. So there's a golf course being put in place there. And this is the extent of the Balskelly estate, covering the land across parts of the area here. This is the eastern boundary here, the other point over there is the western boundary, and in between you've got bits of Balskelly impacting on modern day Carnoustie and the golf courses, in particular the Panmure golf course.
Show us Panmure again, just.
Sorry, David? Panmure. Right, now, if you add in oral evidence from reliable, knowledgeable sources, Geordie Lowe's published diary evidencing the Barry Club playing on Barry Links, I believe it's strong enough evidence to confirm a rudimentary golf course that would have straddled the railway pre-1838. Now this next slide is a photograph of the fields directly south of the Panmure Golf Club where the oral evidence proves the lost golf course. Now it's a bit unfortunate because this field has been ploughed. It's flattened. It's actually at 0 altitude, I think, Colin, is that correct? Yeah. And you can see it's still got waterlogging in it. And it's been left fallow now. But that is links land. If you look carefully on the slide, you'll see that small building on the left. That's the Panmure clubhouse. And you may not be able to see it, but it's in there, way in this corner here. That's the hotel at the Carnoustie golf course. So it's quite a distance, and it's absolutely flat way in there. But it was links land. But we need to give you a better view. It's a wee bit non-plus really, it doesn't give you much at all. You hit the next one.
I'm just going to keep going.
Now before this runs, can I just ask you to imagine up here. There's no fields, there's no Panmure Golf Club, Panmure Golf Course, sorry. What you see as termed cow buyers, I'll point it out shortly, that is the kind of terrain that these fields would be covered in. So you're flying down past the clubhouse there, Barry Station behind these buildings over here, you can still see there's flooding there. As it swings around, the estate is passing Barry Station and goes all the way down, and eventually you'll see a lighthouse, I hope, coming into the picture. There you go there, that's it there. It's in the left middle of the picture, it stops there. And this bit here, that's cow buyers, cottages, the ones at the left. And you can see the sort of terrain that we're talking about here. And these fields would have been similar. Now as this swings round, we're going to go down the fields adjacent to the clubhouse and the golf course. And all the way down there, these sheds you see in the distance, these are the greenkeeper sheds of the Panmure Golf Club. And you can see the course just down there behind these tree lines. Now we will fly in from a different direction. There we go. That's Colin down there with the pilot. We're flying down towards the tree line. When we get to that, there's a path that runs through there. And Colin, my cousin, Carnoustie, the man on the ground, amateur archaeologist, discovered a march stone, which is the boundary to the estate. So we're just coming up to it now. The pathway runs through here, goes right down past cow buyers. It'll swing round, and you'll see a white cottage with a nice conservatory and some farm buildings behind it. Hopefully, there we go. Right there. That's Cotside Cottage. And the path runs all the way up to that scarred groundwork up there, just straight forward. That is Cotside Quarry. What was the rising ground of Cotside, where David Hunter was going to build his villas. And he would get £10 a year from it for a few years. The estate also runs in this direction towards Barry Village and ends up at the church, the old church. Just exactly how far, Colin, would you say?
You put me on the spot.
Yeah, I did. On purpose.
I'm lost without Google Maps. It's probably the best part of half a mile.
Yeah, that's good enough. Now all these fields are Balskelly Estate. The first 3 holes, last 3 holes of the Panmure golf course cross the Balskelly Estate. I think what you're looking at, if you can imagine the Cowbuyers area transferred across here and right up to Cotside, you get an idea in your mind of just the sort of ground that we're talking about. And it is links land. That's the trouble. At one time, it formed the largest loch in Forfar. It was sea-washed turf as well. So this was the lower half of the Balskelly estate. Given John Gillow's evidence, the oral evidence, and indeed the sighting of the Panmure golf course itself in 1897, this was the location of the original golf course, in my opinion. This land existed before the combination of North Sea tidal action, the river Tay, and the climate would change Carnoustie Bay, forming Carnoustie Links, and even then the new links at Carnoustie were only 30 acres in size. And that's the kicker. If you're going to have a golf course, it's going to take more than 30 acres. Now I could talk on about what was happening on the coastline, but problems in Arbroath, problems in Monteith. They didn't have any problems in Carnoustie. What was happening was the sand was being washed away out to the North Sea, and it was being dumped back on Carnoustie Bay. And that raised the small sand hills and stopped the tide coming in. Well, almost. I think we used to get flooding occasionally, probably, yeah. Links Parade, if you know it, from the Burnside Golf Course, all the way along that driveway that goes to the station at the far end, if you know Carnoustie. Links Parade. It's only 12 feet above sea level. Something to think about. So where is the sand going? Well, it's all going on Carnoustie Bay. The tipping point was around 1800. That's when the sea stopped going up and through towards the high street of Carnoustie. Funnily enough, that's when the Kinlocks took over the Carnoustie estate. Okay, thanks. Now, the Hunters' golfing story didn't end with the sale of Balskelly. David would spend more time in Musselburgh involved in the development of Portobello Golf Club, and as a member of the Musselburgh Club, he had 4 sons. All of them attended Loreto Academy for boys. 3 would become members of the Royal Musselburgh Club, David, Christopher and Thomas, and you can see some of the exploits there, and they would feature in club competitions representing their club in inter-club matches. Apart from one, they played for Portobello against Royal Musselburgh. Now the Hunter generations would go on into the 1960s, playing golf as members of the Royal Musselburgh Golf Club. A remarkable 7 generations of golfers. Now I believe Carnoustie's journey in the game of golf would have been very different without the influence of the railway. It was the catalyst for major change, recognised by Moll, whatever his motives, and the Kinlocks. It brought an increase in the village's working class population, mostly from Dundee, to support light industries. David Hunter's version was more gentrifying, with feuds generated through the construction of villas in the small village of Hunterston that I pointed out as an example. Now those working class lads were caddying for the Barry Club, they were caddying for the Caledonian Union Club, and the Panmure Club. I indeed myself caddied for the Panmure Club as a wee boy. But in 1848, the golf world was turned upside down with the introduction of the gutty ball. Artisans now began to populate the links of Barry, and as a result, their children and their children's children, leading to the amazing contribution Carnoustians would make from around 1880. And we give to the game of golf throughout the golfing world some 265 young professionals, going to America and a further 80 to other parts of the world. But 1848 saw another step change. Alan Robertson, master professional, had laid the foundations in that year for Carnoustie's developing championship course. The layout that would provide the exam paper, the course, a masterclass in developing the people's game. For example, here are one family, the Hackneys, who would take their golfing skills to the USA. That's Clarence up there. And they were all the boys there you see, all seven of them I think, were all professionals in the USA. Clarence, Canadian Open champion, 1928. He reckoned that this wee boy here is the best of them all. Young Davy. He was professional at Vesters. He trained the high school kids how to play. He nurtured the game for 40 years. And he beat Fleck 2-1 in a competition. And Fleck at the time I think was the Open champion. This wee boy here, that's Stuart Hackney. David Ainsley took his name thinking he would never be found. That's him there. Now he was professional, the state of Maine, and he too nurtured the game and brought forward golfers from that area. Those Carnoustie men actually involved themselves, in my research, with some 700 country clubs in the United States of America. That's a phenomenal number of country clubs. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening to my story. Could you bang on?